Stage 20, participles. Okay, so what is a participle? We got to start there. A participle is simply an adjective that comes from a verb. That's it. So what are some examples in English? Well, let's take a look, because I always like to start with English. Look at this first sentence. Do you see that man standing by the door? Well, see is the main verb of the sentence, but I also see the verb to stand, but look how it has an ing at the end. This word right here comes from the verb to stand. It's used as an adjective, though, because it's describing the man. So when a verb is used as an adjective, it is a participle. Look at this next one. I saw my friend running down the street. What do you think the participle is? You guessed it. It's running. Comes from the verb to run, but it's being used as an adjective describing my friend. And then look at the third one. We heard her shouting at her friend, and the participle is shouting. Comes from the verb to shout, but it's describing her right here. Okay, so let's take a look at in Latin. Just take a look at these sentences. Go ahead and pause it and try and figure out the participle. All right. Hopefully you figured out that these bold-faced words are the participles in these sentences. So let's talk about patterns here. What did you notice? You might have noticed that they look like a verb, right? Because they have to be formed from verbs. Participles are just adjectives that come from verbs. And 3 of the examples here have an NT towards the end of them, and then they appear to have some kind of like ending that maybe looks somewhat vaguely familiar or maybe not. All right, so those are what Latin participles look like. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So, present active participles. We know what a participle is. How are they translated, though? They're translated from Latin into English as simply verbing. All right, that covers the participle part. Now, present. The word present indicates that the action is happening now. And then why active? So let's take a look at this example sentence again. I saw my friend running down the street. We know that running is the participle, and it's describing friend. It's happening right now, and it's active. We say it's active because the friend is actually doing this action, right? The friend is doing the running. Why am I setting this up? Because in stage 21, we're going to talk about passive participles, and that's when something is being done to the person that the participle is describing. So just save that for later. Okay, so now that we have a sense of what these things are and how they're translated, we have to look more specifically about how they're formed in Latin. And guess what, folks? Participles are the mullets of Latin. You see this beautiful, beautiful mullet here? This Kentucky waterfall, this Tennessee top hat, whatever you want to call it. It is business up front, party in the back. And guess what? So are participles in Latin. They're verby up front, but nouny in the back. That's right. You take a word in Latin that looks like a verb in the front, and then you attach noun endings to it, and bam, you got yourself a participle. Let's take our classic porto, portare, portavi, meaning to carry. The first thing we're going to do is take the present verb stem. How do we find that again? Well, we look at the infinitive, portare, we chop off the re, and then, because participles are mullets, we add the following third declension noun endings. Here we go, mullets. Bam, these are the third declension noun endings. Go ahead and pause that and jot these down. All right, so you probably noticed that you have an NS here in the nominative singular. That's the memory trick for it, NS, nominative singular. Everywhere else, you have the letters NT, and then they're followed by, if you look at your noun chart, third declension column, they're followed by just the third declension endings, like SEMA, es, ibus, es, ibus. So if we put that on the end of porta, this is what it looks like. Portans, portantis, portanti, portantum, etc. All right? So here is how a present active participle is formed in Latin. Once again, verby in the front, but nouny in the back. Now the NT, a way to remember that is in the word present. So present participles are going to have an NT everywhere attached to a verb. They're going to be followed by a noun ending. And the only exception is the nominative singular, which ends in S. Excellent. Okay, this is super important. Since participles are adjectives, they have to agree with the noun they describe in 3 ways: case, number, and gender. Let's look at these sentences. Pause them and pause the video and write them down. Okay, now let's talk about how they're translated. If we look at this first one, astrologus in cubiculum erupit clamans. Well, first of all, where's our participle? It's going to be clamans. It looks like clamo, the verb to shout. So verby in the front, but nouny in the back. It has an NS for nominative singular. So since participles are adjectives, this has to be describing a nominative singular noun earlier in the sentence. Well, what's the nominative singular noun? It's all the way back at the beginning, the astrologer. So you could translate this as the astrologer burst into the bedroom shouting, or you could say the shouting astrologer burst into the bedroom. Look at number 2. Pueri per urbem currentes patronem conspexerunt. Where's our participle here? Hopefully you found out that it is currentes, coming from that verb curro, meaning to run. Okay, how do I know it's a participle? Looks verby in the front. It's got an nt, as in the word present. And then, bam, nouny in the back. Noun ending right there, es. Look at that es ending. Third declension. That could either be nominative, plural, or accusative, plural. But it's got to be describing something earlier in the sentence. And bam, I'm going to go with nominative plural. It's describing pueri, the boys, comma, running through the street, comma, caught sight of Petro. And now let's look at our last example. Spectatores sacerdotem e templo discedentem viderunt. Well, if I'm looking at this sentence and I'm trying to find, okay, what is my participle? I'm looking for a word that looks verby in the front. It's got an NS or an NT, nouny in the back. And if I'm looking along, here's what I see. Bam, discedentem. Got the NT right there. Comes from this verb discedo, discedere, discessi, to leave. And nouny in the back. All right, em. Ooh, third declension. Where do I see that? The accusative case goes em. Whoa. Plus, I can use the looky-likey rule here. It's got to be describing sacerdotem. The spectators saw the priest leaving out of the temple. All right, so just to summarize, participles are adjectives formed from verbs. They're verby in the front, nouny in the back, like the mullet. Business up top, party in the back. Okay, they're going to have an NS for nominative singular, and then NT everywhere else is in the word present. And if they have that NT, they're going to be followed by a third declension noun ending, and they're always translated as verbing. Not much to these. They're used all the time, though, so that's why we have to know them. They're very, very important. Okay, that's it for now.